everyone, and this is my review for Impact Wrestling on April the 13th, 2017. And you know what? I really hope this whole thing with the commentators are done and everything in that sense, but I don't know if that's going to actually be the case. But otherwise, again, for the most part, the show was rather enjoyable, outside of the constant bickering all the time between JB and Josh. Otherwise, it was fine. Otherwise, it was a fine show. They started off the show with Reno Scum going up against Laredo Kid and Garza Jr. versus Decay. Good triple threat match. Good triple threat match in the tag team division. They're putting Reno Scum over. They're still putting Reno Scum over throughout everything here, and they get the pin over Decay. And like I said, I really like their finisher. It's like a wheelbarrow style, where one of them has them look like they're going to go like to a wheelbarrow submission hold, but the other dude jumps over him and does a double stomp to him, and it looks cool. And honestly, I like Reno Scum a little bit more when they're not doing promos. I'm not a big fan of their promo work, but otherwise in ring, I'm liking what I'm seeing in the terms of their in ring. It's their promo work that I really don't like at this point in time. But otherwise, they continue on pushing them. It looks like they might be the next ones going for the X Division, not the X Division title. That's somebody else going for the X Division title, for the tag team titles in LAX. Up next, you had Andrew Everett promo. Basically, he's done what he needed to do. Saying he's like, you know what, maybe I should get an X Division title shot and everything in that sense. Shane Helms comes up and says, no, you don't get your shot at the title yet. You have to have a fatal four-way to prove yourself a little bit more. And he says it was going to be Suicide, Marche, Rocket, and then Andrew Everett kind of convinces Gregory Helms or Shane Helms to be in the match himself. So he eventually does agree after basically the most easy way of getting put into something. It's like, you scared? Are you scared? It's okay to be scared. And then he gets into the match. Like I said, after one of the most basic bits. So that match does come up later. Up next, you have Bruce Pritchard come out, and he was going to come out to announce the new #1 contender for the World Heavyweight title, and they were going to go for that title next week. And said it was through fan vote and everything in that sense, and he announces it as James Storm. And so basically afterwards, of course, they get a bit where you see James Storm being happy, and of course he's completely ditched the DCC thing. Now he's just fully back to the Cowboy and everything in that sense. So like the DCC never happened to him now in that portion of it. Like, he's not even feuding with them in any way. This does bring out EC3. He gets into Bruce Pritchard's face. Is like, that has to be rigged. The fans have to vote for me. Like, the fans were gonna vote for me and everything in that sense. Like, you always see everybody waving their hands during his theme music and everything in that sense. And he even puts a bit where he said, so you're going to hold one loss over Alberto El Patron over me and not letting me have a world title shot. And then Bruce Pritchard brings up the whole aspect. It's like, it's not the fact that you lost, it's the way you lost. You tapped out. And he does this little bit where he's looking at EC3 but also looking at the camera. It's like, you should look at the guy in the mirror and see what you see in that, what everyone else is seeing inside of that mirror. And it's like, you know what? Maybe I will, and maybe I'm gonna show you what EC3 is all about in the end, and do what he needs to do. Heel turn's coming. It might happen next week, but you've been feeling that heel turn coming for a while now, and this is going to be that case here at this point. So we'll be seeing how they go with this, and if it ends out going next week or down the road, like, I feel like a heel turn for EC3 is coming. Like, he's going to show more aggressive EC3 and everything in that sense. He might even attack James Storm next week during the title match, and we'll see how everything goes off. Up next was KM and Sienna going up against Braxton Sutter. and Ali. And this was an interesting match. It was mostly Braxton Sutter and KM in the match. It does eventually lead to Ali and Sienna getting in there. And it does lead to a comedy style ending where KM was kind of beaten down and he's crawling to get out of the ring as Sienna had caught Ali from trying to do a crossbody, but he ends up tripping Sienna and allowing Ali to get the victory. And so comedy-esque ending. The match was fine. The match itself was fine. It was afterwards where they had been doing this whole bit where they had been showing was a fierce force, or a force was coming, and they were going to go after Ali and Braxton Sutter and everything in that sense. And they bring out a dude a rather large dude, who's also painted. He has like a paint up thing. It was almost like a Kamala-esque character in that sense of it. But they name him Congo Kong. He comes out there and destroys Braxton Sutter. Just completely lays him out as Sienna and KM are looking on the are looking outside the ring, with a glimmer of glee in their eyes and everything in that sense. And Sienna shows her control over Congo Kong by making him get out of the ring. This does eventually bring where Ali's trying to go to Braxton Sutter. Laurel Van Ness comes out, still looking crazier than ever, and could literally be the fourth member of Decay still. Yeah, you could go with that in that sense of it. And her and Sienna basically lay out Ali to go along with it, and eventually Sienna has to pull Laurel Van Ness off as well. So they're going to be going with this for a little while. I'm not saying that it's going to be bad, but it definitely will lead to I think it'll lead to a point that maybe Ali will not be portrayed as kind of not knowing what she's doing in the ring, and maybe they will have her do a little bit more with that down the road here and see how they play off of everything. Like I said, we'll see how they play off of everything here. This wasn't too bad, and like I said, they did have the comedy style ending to finish the match, but then you had the beatdown afterwards with Congo Kong coming in, and then Laurel Van Ness afterwards as well. Up next was Rosemary going up against Santana Garrett. This match was a decent match. It was actually a pretty good match from Rosemary and Santana Garrett. Good back and forth between both of them. Like, in the end, I don't feel like this is going to lead much to it. Like, this particular match isn't going to lead much to anything. It's kind of still showing Rosemary's kind of dominance over the Knockouts division and the Knockouts title at this point. But in the end, doesn't really lead to anything. It was just there to be a match, and it was a good match. Like I said, it was a good match. But we'll see what they decide to do down the road, and who is gonna and who actually ends up being Rosemary's next real program. Will it be ODB? Obviously, ODB has the #1 contendership, or will they have someone else be that other catalyst to a program for Rosemary somewhere down the road here? We'll see what they decide to go with. This one here again was kind of to show that Rosemary does still have the control over the Knockouts division. She still wins pretty much every time, but a good match otherwise on both sides for this one as well. Up next was that Fatal 4-Way match with Andrew Everett, Suicide, Marche Rocket, and Shane Helms. And I'm actually looking at this, like, they weren't even doing a lot of backstage stuff for this one, because a lot of things were kind of, if you weren't watching the matches, you were listening to the commentary, and that was pretty much telling you the rest of the night to go along with it. Again, good Fatal 4-Way here. Like, this match was rather enjoyable. All sides got to look good again. Shane Helms was kind of playing this whole duck and dodge, hit and run type tactic where he would get into the ring, do a little bit of damage, then get out of the ring, and would try to sneak a victory in somewhere else along the line. Eventually leading to Andrew Everett getting to Shane Helms. He doesn't pin Shane Helms in this case. He does pin Marche Rocket with a shooting star press, good looking shooting star press too, and Andrew Everett continues on his winning streak. But afterwards, as the commentators were kind of saying, he's like, yeah, maybe this does kind of prove that Andrew Everett deserves another title match, and like Trevor Lee and Shane Helms kind of know it as well. So Trevor Lee is out attacking Andrew Everett after the match. After he had been kicked out, he comes back after the match and tries to beat him down a little bit and attack him from behind. But Andrew Everett eventually turns everything around and does that spiking Hurricane Rana to Trevor Lee and lays him out as he stares down Shane Helms afterwards as well. Again, kind of a good segment. I like what they've been doing with the X Division title. They've kind of been building a story around it, which is something that they've needed. They needed to do that with the X Division title. And what they used to do as well. You used to have really good matches with the X Division, but you used to also have really good stories to go along with it. And you had not been seeing that over the past number of years, where the X Division title was kind of put onto the wayside. It's like, oh, they'll put on a good match, don't worry about it, but there's no real reason to get behind anybody here. They're kind of giving you a reason to get behind Andrew Everett in this one, and I've been liking what they've been doing. Up next was Davey Richards versus DJZ. This match wasn't too bad. It was kind of one of those bits where, you know, it was a decent match. The match itself was kind of a catalyst towards everything else. Davey Richards does win the match, beating DJZ with an ankle lock with that aspect. So they're still playing off the aspect, because the way that DJZ taps out, like, they're still playing off the aspect that he has an ankle injury with that. So he tapped out really quick to it as well. I like how they do play off of that in that sense. But after the match, Eddie Edwards comes out after the match. Now think about this. 1 week ago, he just got kicked in the head with a chain. Now, I know we've seen it happen before where it's like, oh, they're just like, and he doesn't really come out selling an injury of any kind. That's the main thing there. Eddie Edwards kind of pulls he kind of pulls one of those moments. It's like, yeah, last week I got beaten down and everything in that sense. Like, I get kicked in the head with a chain and all this stuff happened to me. And the next week, totally fine. Totally good. This is one of those moments where you really go with yourself here and ask, is like, why was Eddie Edwards not kept off of this week's show? Now, and granted, they tape these shows as well to go along with it. So it's like just 1 week later that they have that Eddie Edwards just shows up. And like I said, he looks like he's just completely fine. No injury, no nothing to anything. Completely good to go. Has to be held back by security. Both Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards get held back by security, as Angelina Love and Eddie Edwards' wife's name, I don't know it off the top of my head. I know they have a name, and I missed it again, and I need to learn names better. That's just how I am, though. I forget names. But both of them end up brawling. And this is probably going to lead to something where both of them team up together. Like, you have Angelina Love and Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards and his wife as well, who I think is actually signed to a Impact Wrestling contract now to go along with it. And that's what we're probably going to see here in the very near future. So, yeah, we'll see where they go with that. Wasn't a big fan of the whole aspect of Eddie Edwards kind of showing up after last week's Last Man Standing match. It's like, kind of negates everything. Alright, I guess we'll go with it for now, though. So, this leads up to the whole Team Jeremy Borash and Team Josh Matthews. We'll leave it at Josh Matthews, even though he called it the GOAT. The greatest of all time team and everything in that sense. And they even put up a bit where if not Jeremy Borash's, but if Josh Matthews' team loses, Jeremy Borash was putting nothing on the line, but Josh Matthews put everything on the line, saying he would leave if his team lost and everything in that sense. And I feel like they're going to find a way out of this and continue this, which makes me sad. This match was a good match. I'm not going to lie. This is a good 8-man tag. with you have Alberto El Patron, Chris Adonis, aka Chris Masters, Matt Morgan, and Magnus on Jeremy Borash's side, and you had Lashley, you had Bram, who was still coming out the DCC music, by the way, too, and you had Eli Drake and Tyrus. All of them worked great. This is a good match. As a standalone match, this was good. The aspect of the story behind the match, we've seen it before, and like I said, I was not a person that knocked the aspect of the Michael Cole, way back when, heel character. The build-up with him and Jerry Lawler to actually have a match was where it went bad. Everything else was fine. But that build-up going into WrestleMania is where it was bad. And that's where this was. It's like, we're going to build this up. And now, granted, they didn't actually wrestle in that case. So that's okay. But, like, they put so much emphasis behind every single bit of these two in almost every single match, where they would continually bicker, and they wouldn't bicker about the match that was going on. They would bicker about other things. At least when, and I'd have to watch some more of the stuff again, but from what I remember, when Michael Cole did the heel character thing, they kind of bickered about what was going on in the ring. Like, what one liked over the other and everything in that sense. And they had reasons behind it, like, that Michael Cole would interfere and start talking over matches and everything in that sense as well. Like, they had some good stuff to it. It was just the rest of the build towards the WrestleMania match, and the WrestleMania match was bad. This one just was bad. It was bad all around because they continually bickered about things that weren't going on. Like, things that would happen later. Why couldn't they have had this whole aspect that's like one guy's going for the other and the other guy's going for the other guy, and they bicker about that in there, and it would have at least made this better. At least that's how I feel. Like I said, the match itself, standalone, I thought was good. I thought it was a good match. But I just did not like the whole storyline going into it. Just how I feel in the end. So, with that being said, though, overall, I thought the Impact Wrestling show this week was not bad. If you kind of turned off the commentary to go along with it, because it's kind of it is a little bit hilarious having JB and Josh Matthews kind of bicker, and Pope is like, "Can we just call what's happening, please?" Trying to be the middleman there. There's a little bit of okay in there, but overall, did not like this story. And I hope it's over with. Because technically, Josh Matthews is supposed to leave. Obviously, I feel like they're probably going to do something that makes him stick around, in that sense of it. But we'll see where they decide to go with everything. So, that is my review this week for Impact Wrestling. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.